Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve, and really talk about what that means, because there's some interesting things in there, and I want us to start thinking about rebellion, or telling authority figures and or people in our lives, meanwhile, that they're wrong and we're going to do it our own way. So there's a lot of that going on in this story too. So I want to think about the story of Adam and Eve and this forbidden fruit, and what does that really mean to us? And so actually, the story was inspired by a conversation I had with Richard, and I'd like to play with this a little bit. So good to see you all today. Like I said, I'll probably cozy on up there so I can kind of you just kind of, because it's going to be a neat little conversation. I really want your opinions on this stuff. So, all right, opening song, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. I've been doing it for the month. It's, I think that works relatively well. Oh, I don't like that one at all. That's better. All right, cool. Let's go. I like that. All right. There it is. There it goes. So swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I'm sometimes up and I'm sometimes down, coming for to carry me home. But still I know that I'm heavenly bound, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home. Tell all my friends that I'm coming too, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Cool, Naz. All right. Some things to chat about, some announcements, prayers, things of that nature. So let me kind of cozy on up here where I can see you all and just kind of sit. Just good spot. Lovely. Alright. A couple things I'd like to lift up in our prayers today. One was asked very specifically by Eric to lift up a friend of his father's. His name is Roger. He went out somewhere west of here and actually caught COVID while looking at homes and things like that. So, and hit him pretty bad. So I'd like us to keep Roger in our prayers at this time. Other prayers we'd like to lift up, I should probably lovingly, kindly bring Dave's, boat motor into our prayers. It seems to be dying here, it's had a good long life.
Yes, it's really old.
Yeah, it's had a good long life, but it may be ready for the great boatyard in the sky. Other prayers we'd like to lift up as a gang together today.
I don't have a prayer, but I have an announcement. Richard and I are probably going to be moving very soon.
Oh my God, where to?
They're selling our house.
What?
Yeah. So, we don't know where to yet,
Okay.
but we're looking.
All right. Let's keep our eyes open and see. Yeah. So what happened there?
We got an email said, hey, a realtor's coming by Monday. We're selling your house.
Are they just starting the process of it, or do they have a
Did you
buyer?
just sign a lease?
Oh, wait, no, what they said in the email is we can live out the lease to the end of May.
Okay.
Okay. That the only thing that would change is we'd be writing the rent check to somebody else till then. I guess they have some kind of agreement with this real estate person.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't even call us. They just sent us an email and said, oh, by the way, we're selling the house. You're living in it. So.
Well, that's a, yeah.
Sure. Huh? No, you know what?
You're probably better off. But
I've been talking about it for a long time.
You have been
moving
debating
different
it,
ways,
yep.
And this is just my kick in the butt to get moving. But we don't know where we're gonna move yet. We haven't found it. But we'll get there.
All right.
Just wanted to let you know, I mean, we're moving.
are you thinking of moving back to Minnesota?
Or do you like
Maybe
this area you
we'll
want us to? What?
No, she said, are you thinking about moving back to Minnesota? No, we're gonna stay in the area. Because A, he loves his dialysis center that he's at right now. And B, we're in between the Mayo and Madison, so this is a perfect spot to be because those are the two transplant nurses on.
It is a good, well, I hate to lose you in the area, but obviously, let's keep an eye out. Anyone knows a good place to rent that,
With only one bedroom, please, I have one in Rayburn with me again.
what?
That's one way of eliminating it.
Oh,
We're saying, well, you got the cold.
well, we ended up doing the same thing there.
No, we're trying to get his mom into something a little more senior stable.
Yeah.
And Ron probably is gonna end up with her. But I told Rick, I said, one bedroom, nobody can move in. I'm done.
Well,
You've
it's
certainly
hard.
done your
It's
time.
hard on
Yeah.
a marriage. It's hard on everything.
Well, I don't mind being a caretaker, but I'm tired now.
Yeah.
Well, it's maybe a good time for a new chapter that way.
Yeah.
I agree. All right. Other prayers we'd like to lift up
And
today?
Richard,
Richard, let's bring up Richard. Our prayers, the new medication, some horrible side effects. So let's keep Richard in our prayers. Let's pray. Oh God, we come to you this morning. We thank you for a beautiful day. Thank you to be with our friends and family. Help us to reach out and love and care to one another. We reach out to Roger and to Richard and all the Kennedys as they search for a home. Dear God, help us to be more loving, more caring every day. In Jesus' name we lift up these and so many more of our prayers to you. Amen. All right, today's topic is going to be all about the creation story. And how do we look at what Adam and Eve, well, not exactly the creation story, the rebellion story, I guess you can say. How do we look at what Adam and Eve did in eating the forbidden fruit? And so, let's start with this.
Eve didn't sin when she ate the apple. And that's straight from the text. It's true. Check the text. The word for sin isn't actually used until right before Cain kills Abel. It's sometimes used as like header or like a chapter title for that section of the Bible, like the first sin and its punishments in the NSRV, or the great fall, the fall of man in NIV. But canonically what Eve does is not sin. So what is it? She broke a rule. But rules were made to be broken. In Cassandra Speaks, Elizabeth Lesser talks about how if Eve was the protagonist of her own story, it would be a hero's journey. Like, she listened to a well-reasoned argument, she took a big chance, she went out on her own, like, she gained knowledge. I sometimes think of it like God didn't want them to eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil because they were God's babies, and God didn't want them to grow up and, like, be grown up like them, but we all have to grow up sometimes.
Interesting. So a lot of things there at once, and it really is just a way to begin our eventual thoughts on ways to look at this story and what does it mean to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We'll be chatting about that later. So start thinking of it. Her point of view is a very odd and slightly controversial one. If Eve was to write this story, from her perspective, she might actually be the hero of it, a person who reached out to gain new knowledge and things of that nature. Is that fair? Is that not fair? And I'm going to bring that over into our main conversation. Hold that thought in our heads because one of the things we're going to ask, is it so bad that we gained knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil? Or would it have been better to stay sort of blissful, ignorance is bliss type thing? So turn that in your head a little bit, because that's going to be a big part of our main conversation. All right, I'm going to grab my guitar for the next song while Cassie introduces why we're going to sing this one.
I like it. In the garden reminds me of those joyful childhood days where I'd stay home sick and see all the advertisements for the Relco record collections. And this was one of the songs I kept hearing over and over all day.
Who sang that version on that particular collection?
I can't remember her name, but she had a really bad perm. It was the 70s after all.
A lot of bad folks back then.
All right, well, it's funny because obviously I teased her a lot about this. I used to play this at almost every funeral and stuff. But it is a song we try to do one every week that's relatively modern and one that has stood the test of time. So this is definitely in the stand of test of time category. Please feel free to join me. I'm going to do this. I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and He walks with me and He talks with me. He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks and the sound of His voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the that He gave to me within my heart is ringing, and He walks with me and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with Him, though the night around me be falling, but He bids me go through the voice of woe, His voice to me is calling, and He walks with me and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. Thank you, gang, very much.
Could have been. Could have been.
I know it, I have the album.
Oh.
I said, what did I miss over
She
here?
said Anne Murray.
Yeah, that very well.
Go ahead,
Yeah, okay, fair
I
enough.
have the album, I'm telling you guys, I know.
Colleen's absolutely certain on this. Good deal. I'm just trying to picture Cassie in bed, eating something and watching Anne Marie sing in the garden on TV.
It was only on the commercials and it was only the chorus, but it played a zillion times in my childhood.
That's awesome. All right, we always remember a time where we remind ourselves of God's forgiveness of us and our encouragement by God to forgive others. It's a wonderful quote. Sins cannot be undone, only forgiven. So I think it's very appropriate with what we're talking about today. Because today is, what Adam and Eve did in a sense, did something where you couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. We'll be talking about a lot today. All right, let's pray. Oh God, we come to you this morning. We thank you to be together, but we also please remind us of the fact that we are forgiven and that we reach out to forgive others, even when it's difficult. Help us to reach out to others knowing that we are only human and that we've all done things that we probably shouldn't have done. But that we use that experience and even that pain to help reach out and forgive others and walk with them in this imperfect path of life. In Jesus' name, we lift these prayers to you, O God. Let us continue our prayers in silence. Brothers and sisters, here are the good news. There's a wonderful line from Genesis. We ask you to please forgive the terrible things we did. After all, we serve the same God. We are imperfect creatures together, seeking forgiveness and offering it to others. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here's the rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. And together let's pray the prayer that Jesus taught to us. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
I just thought I'd play with a little finger picking version of this. This is also a very old song, but actually has a much more modern content to it as well. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Speak the rains do fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet cotton, sprung in completeness where its deep pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, moon of the one light, Eden softly. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of new day. Okay, so the story today is one all of you have heard somewhere in the past, but I'd like us to look at it with new eyes. The idea is, what is the story telling us about who we are? What is the story really telling us about what's going on? So the story begins at the very beginning of Genesis. God has taken the 6 days, created the earth and all of the life and creatures in it, and then rested on the seventh day. And now, also talked about Adam being the first man and him not being good, being alone. That's always a great verse. I love saying that one at weddings. God, of course, makes man first and realizes something horrible is, or something is desperately needed, something is missing that's very important, and so woman is created, and so now they are in this perfect garden, and at the beginning of Genesis 3. Now the snake was sneakier than any of the other wild animals that the Lord God had made. And one day it came to the woman and asked, Did God tell you not to eat fruit from any tree in the garden? And the woman answered, God said we could eat fruit from any tree in the garden except the one in the middle. He told us not to eat fruit from that tree or even to touch it, or we will die. No, you won't, the snake replied. God understands what will happen on the day you eat fruit from that tree. You will see what you have done, and you will know the difference between right and wrong, just as God does. The woman stared at the fruit. It looked beautiful and tasty. She wanted the wisdom that it would give her. And so she ate some of the fruit. And her husband was there with her, and so she gave some of the fruit to him, and he ate it too. And right away they saw what they had done, and they realized that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together to make something to cover themselves. And late in the afternoon a breeze began to blow. And the man and the woman heard the Lord God walking in the garden, and they were frightened and hid behind some trees. Most of you know the rest of the story. It is the story where God talks to them about what they've done, and they all get punishment and things of that nature. But I want to talk a little bit about why they did it, or what the story means to us, or whose fault is this really? So there's all sorts of angles we can take on this. So let's begin with the story. Whose fault? And we can take this many ways. Who's to blame here?
As far as I know, Adam didn't object, so it was both their faults.
I was waiting for the good feminist argument. Eve always gets blamed, but darn it, Adam didn't say a word. So, and later, by the way, when God asks lots of questions, Adam's going to blame her first. God turns to Adam and says, "Why did you do this?" And Adam says, "Well, that woman gave it to me over here." And so, fair enough, but he didn't ask any questions at the time either. So, good deal. So let's put some of the blame on Adam. Let's
You can't say that she wore the pants on the town because he didn't have it.
they didn't have any, not yet. You can use the expression, she wore the pants in the family, but there weren't any pants yet. Fair enough. Now, what do you think life was like for, this is the interesting thing, what do you think life was like for them before they ate, and this is a very important title, I'm trying to get it right, they ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What would life have been like for them prior to that? We don't have a whole lot of time to know. The Bible doesn't spell out this. So what do you think?
Just an innocence.
Innocence, okay.
Yeah, because if you're not aware of other things, you go through life unaware. Oh, hey, this is good, think about a child, they never had to go hungry or had to stroke, in a good but they never really had to go hungry. So parents, mom and dad were there, it was something they didn't have to think about, or us, if it's something, right now, we can breathe. Okay, Cassie and I, we have to think about the air or something. But on most days, it's just, this is a given. It's here for us. And I think that's the same way that they felt was, this is the way it is. And as long as they don't know anything, they're living in innocence.
I think it was just like any other one. Just eat, sleep, do what you do, and that's it.
Just exist.
You just exist.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned animals, and you're right. If my dog goes out and kills a bird or something like that, it's not a moral issue anymore. It's just what dogs do. So in other words, I may try to save the bird or something like that. My Abby is they call them bird dogs. They like birds. And so
Well, they don't have to worry right now.
no, they're pretty saved my dog. So is the cat. I should say this. And dogs chase cats around, and you never say to the dog, "Oh, that's horrible. You morally."
How dare you frighten that cat?
Yeah, it's just what they do.
And I do talk to Simon like that. How dare you bring that live choke in my house again?
Yeah, but there's really not a moral overtone here.
No,
This is not, when the cat brings in the dead animal into your home and presents it to you with that, that's not a moral evil. It's just what they do. So, and I think that's an important distinction. As long as you brought up animals and this innocence of what's the biggest difference then between people and animals? And I think that's part of what they're getting at in the story. So think about this, and you don't have to be perfectly scientifically correct on this, but just off the gut, what's the biggest difference between animals and human beings?
Knowledge.
Just knowledge. What we say?
That's it. No.
Knowledge. I think we are, to a big extent, we learn new things, and we pass that knowledge off to others, children, grandchildren. It's why we can use things that we really don't understand, like cars and furnaces go in our house, and you're like, oh my God, what do we do? Because other people made these things and taught us how to use them. And some animals have very limited access in this area, but not a whole lot. So, all right, fair enough. Here's a tough question. Do you think Adam and Eve in the story regretted leaving a time of innocence and reaching out for new knowledge?
One of them probably.
What?
Yeah.
Why is that?
As soon as you start to blame someone else for your actions, you regret. You must regret what you did. It wasn't. I ate it because I wanted to be more like you. You know, that would.
Well, they don't stick up for themselves much at the moment.
No.
There's a lot of passing the buck. Adam's like, oh, it's this woman you gave me. She's all around. And he's like, oh, that's that snake that showed up and gave me. There's a lot of passing the buck there, but.
Did God even ask her why she did it? What did she say?
It's that snake.
The serpent
That snake tricked me. Yep, there was a lot. Yep. So there's passing the buck going all over the place here. Yep. So.
But if we recognize something that's forbidden, most people will test it to see what is forbidden. There's a test there, like I say, if you're in a place where it's got a fire alarm, so do not break this glass. Somebody's going to break it because they want to see if it really works.
But so this is my $1 million question. Are we a certain way because of Adam and Eve, or is Adam and Eve a certain way because of us? Meaning, is there something fundamental as a part of the human animal that they're talking about here that rebels, that does it their own way despite good advice?
You tested limits from childhood, yeah.
So,
They push all your buttons.
in your experience, personally, who have you found the most rebellious against your good words of wisdom?
My children.
Tell me more.
Think?
Yes.
Alright, so you got
Don't touch this. It's hot.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's
They
safe.
gotta touch it.
Yeah.
got it.
And that's how they learn though. Because
That's true.
they don't believe you until they touch it and they get burned.
That's the way we learn by doing things that are forbidden.
You're good. Tell me some information overload. But I was waiting. I'm like, I know you. I've heard some stories about your kids, and I'm like, oh, there has to be a good rebellion story
it's
in
not
there.
just my kids, it's the people I live with now.
Adults.
They gotta find out for themselves, despite good advice. Huh?
Yep. Just have to test to see if it will really happen, what they heard.
Yes, I have one in particular in my house right now that has to contradict everything anybody says.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a teenager.
It's something we just never really realized.
I mean, we can talk about teenagers, and that's all good, but I think that there's a little bit of that teenager, even in us, when we get to be adults.
Okay.
And there's a little bit I've got my own ideas. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to learn and try this. Now, as much as teenage rebellion, or even you have to be in your teenager, But as much as that can be a pain, as a parent, are there good things that come out of that?
Oh, definitely.
Tell me more.
I think when I watched, my kids were very rebellious. They didn't listen to a word I said, you know? And now that they've been through this, my son, he has now a 4-year-old son. And when he took parenting classes, he wanted everything to happen to this boy that I couldn't really provide for him being a single mom. You know, he wants this boy to grow up knowing how to do this, knowing how to do that, and teaching him how to do dishes, teaching him how to clean, teaching him how to barbecue, taking him on walks. He really has taken, he knew he was rebellious. I mean, he spent a lot of time in juvie for truancy, you know, and now he's like the perfect dad, and he really is. You know, he's got this 4-year-old, and he took it to heart. He knows he wants to start beginning teaching this boy right now, and he is. I got one of the 3 good.
Don't you just feel like that too?
Yeah, I do. I guess somewhere I must have done something right, because one of the 3 of them actually has made something and something good in the way he parents his child.
But you feel lost when you're trying to teach them and they're not listening and they're not responding the way you expect.
Well, it was so bad. I would take them to school, and they'd go in the door and walk out the back, and then I'd go to court for truancy. You know, I mean.
Yeah, at that point you're like, what do I gotta do here?
Yeah.
Sit with them in the classroom.
The main thing of the story really is God is showing that we are human and that we do the things that we shouldn't be doing. We sin. A lot of things we do, we sin, and we're good, and we still do it.
Yeah, the question I want to play with is, so this looking for more knowledge, this looking for more, I mean, Eve is, according to the version we read today, is tempted by the wisdom she can get. Is that always a bad thing? Type thing. Is it, in other words, are there good things that come out of some of our rebellion? Or is it always just bad and we're just people glutton for our own punishment?
Well, there's a certain self-awareness that makes us different than animals, which I think makes us strive to be better. So yeah, it's once you're self-aware, then you get self-conscious, and then you start to be better. So I think that they come in hand in hand. And the story tells us, okay, you guys chose the harder road.
Yeah, I guess the idea I came up with, because I had a wonderful talk with Richard, and that's why I kind of, because Richard essentially once said to me, it's too bad Eve gave in to that, because then life would be better. And I'm like, A, if Adam joined in too. B, would it have been better? And that's the $1 million question I'm throwing out here today, is did Adam and Eve give us a bad route, or is the story of Adam and Eve created to talk about something fundamental in the human animal that's both good and bad all at the same time? That's what I'm throwing out to this group.
I think they're a little both.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, when you learn, you just keep wanting learning. And not everybody is like that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are. I personally enjoy learning things and going to school. Then you have somebody else that says I do nuts, and they just want to exist. They don't want to further themselves. And I think that if we, I do believe that knowledge has made us better, but there's goes to the other way too. That there's people out there that know the wrong things.
I'm gonna throw this question over to Gina. Gina, you are a eternal student.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you are. I admire you as someone who likes to learn. So.
This is really interesting, this whole thing. And I'm not thinking is that the relationship here with God and Adam and Eve is he's the creator. They're not children yet, he's a creator.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing is, they want to be more like God, is the temptation. It wasn't the taste of the fruit.
Nope.
It was
Yeah.
to be more like God. They want to be more like Him. And then the whole story of the Bible is God and rebellious people and trying to train them. And then the New Testament is God the Father and us as children. And we're coming closer.
So you're seeing like a progression throughout the Bible.
This is a story.
Yeah.
Well, I think the food thing is where the separation began. We're not just one thing. You know, I think that was the big, when you say forbidden fruit, it was a separation point. Oh, you know everything. We know that we're not doing things right. It was a separation. And up until that point, there was no separation. It is.
No, it seemed that the story hints of a much closer relationship with God, and that we are running around this garden and God runs through it. The story symbolically hints at a much closer relationship with God.
Yeah. And I think that's what was in that fruit was the separation.
Very direct, yes. Very both the separation and very direct. You're right. There's a direct conversation back and forth. The whole idea of, well, God's walking through the garden later in the day. I mean, so it's a regular occurrence. Like, you know, you're wandering around doing stuff in the garden. Hey, God, how you doing? Good to see you this afternoon. I mean, it hints at that sort of thing going on. Yeah. So.
More direct, but still distant. Still the creator and the children. It's not, they're not a family.
Interesting. Yeah, it makes you wonder what the relationship is. But you're right. God sets it up. He seems to wander through on a regular basis, but here's the big heretical question then. Are we better off or worse off that Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil?
It's gonna happen.
Better off.
Was it? Okay, I got two questions, and I'm going to come back to I'm going to put mine aside. Was it inevitable?
Yeah.
God makes this perfect little garden, says you can do anything you want except eat from that tree.
But why did God put that tree within their reach?
Oh, that's a good question.
There you go.
If you really wanted them not to eat that fruit, you'd stick it outside the garden.
Yeah.
Why hadn't any other animals eaten it?
Well, that's the $1 million question. So, was it? Well, anything more you want to say on this, Colleen? Are we going to leave it as, hey, if God
I'm
really?
leaving it as is.
Fair enough.
I think it was purposely put there.
Yeah, no.
He put it there for a reason.
Right.
He expected them to eat it.
Oh.
Well, he didn't expect, he knew, because he knows everything.
Yeah.
He knew it was gonna happen.
Or was it, which one of my creations are going to eat it?
Who's going to get there first?
Who's going to rise above?
Okay.
No, because I don't feel that way, because when he created Adam, he gave Adam in charge of all the animals and to name them.
Yep.
Well, he created us, and then he knew that we were susceptible to not listen to the Lord. And if you keep God, have patience and not do it, you can relate to yourself. If you put yourself in that place, you probably did the same thing.
Late disease.
Do you?
Yes, I do. Okay. I'm so sorry. I have I'm going to plug that in. Okay. What were you saying when I
I'm
had?
saying I can relate to it because I probably did the same thing.
And that's one of my questions is, are we the way we are because of Adam and Eve, or is Adam and Eve the way they are in the story because of who we are?
Yeah.
And that's in other words, is the by the time they're writing down the story, is the die already cast in terms of who we are and discussing that. Meaning, or you can just say, look, it was inevitable. It's a possibility. Meaning, you're gonna, Colleen lovingly reminds God, you put the darn thing right in the arms reach, or we could all get to it. Sooner or later, this curious human being was going to reach out for more knowledge and try to be like God, and both good and bad things were going to happen. So, are we? It's rare that I get a unanimous vote around here. So, do we think honestly that grabbing the fruit was that inevitable? That sooner or later these humans were going to do this?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Look at the way we're created. When you come out, what's the first thing you see? What's the way babies learn? They're not. You know.
They got to stick everything in there, yeah.
That's the way we
You
are.
put it out of reach if you don't want it to happen.
Right.
Or put it on top of a mountain, or start making it.
Yeah, it's like even humans, we got those baby locks. We got a whole section in Menards. Stuff you put on cabinets so
You
little
could have
kids
made
can't get in there.
You could have made it a cave of knowledge. Don't go in there in the dark. I mean, you could have done anything.
Fair enough. No, and I think that's symbolic too, meaning that this road was in some ways inevitable. It was just too easy, too tempting to pass up. Yeah, I mean, is there something about the human animal that always wants to learn? And is that good or bad? Is there something?
Curiosity.
Of course there is. If there wasn't something that we have to continually strive for, there wouldn't be rockets, there wouldn't be cell phones, there wouldn't be cars, there wouldn't be,
Yeah.
if there weren't some kind of innate curiosity
Yeah.
within.
And without that knowledge, our life would have been very limited, but with the striving, we get the highs and the lows.
Yep.
But we can't have one without the other.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, there's a few people I know who just go,
Yeah, there's
it's not me.
No, and Mary Lou pointed that out too, was that there's a few people that are just kind of, I'm happy, whatever. But
Yes.
a lot of people strive for more, and it does bring good and bad stuff. I mean, the technology, our world has, like I said, it looks like the people who made cures for horrible diseases also made the atomic bomb. It's the knowledge, and
Well, to give you an example, and this is true, I know this family, okay? The mom and the dad had 5 kids. Only one ever moved out of the house. And they live like that, and they have the same routine every single day, they do the same exact things every day. They had a little job for a while, but then something happened, so they all, only one of those children ever went out and got married and moved on. It's this family's like stuck in time, okay? They have a rotary phone. They have no certain technologies. I think they finally had to get a different one because there's no more.
Yeah, it just
Yeah. it doesn't
Well,
work
and they don't
anymore.
even have the parts to repair it anymore.
Right, but this family is very literally stuck in time. They get up, they have the same breakfast every morning, they listen to the same music all the time, they do absolutely nothing but live this way.
Well, you can't even have a farm or anything now. They can't have,
They don't have a farm, they live in the Twin Cities. They have a paid-for house. It's, the
I'm
dad
sorry, but
left enough
that's
to
not
keep on
allowed.
going.
that's
No,
not
but
allowed.
I'm just telling you, this family does exist. And they do absolutely nothing out of the norm. You know, we have this on Mondays, we have this on Tuesdays, we have this on Wednesdays, we have this on Thursdays, we have this on Fridays. And it's just that way. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. But this whole entire family lives on a steady plane.
I had one of the big influence in my life was someone who was when I was a chaplain for a while. It was a neat program where you spend half your time on the floors being a chaplain, half the time kind of talking with each other about their experiences. And So he was a beautiful blend of psychology and religion. He had a story from his growing up years that I think really illustrates the exact same point. His parents, to his own pain, would often compare him to a kid down the street who never gave his parents any trouble.
Oh, yeah, right.
Oh no, this gets better. This child never gave his parents any trouble. He didn't rebel. He didn't, and they seem to compare often. And he mentioned he's an older gentleman. He said years later he goes back home to visit. That guy, the kid, basically he now has his parents' farm, but he doesn't quite know how to plant things. So the neighbor farmer has to come over, help him plant things, and tells him what to do. And it's like, well, he grew up, got a degree, went out, and he's like, so every once in a while he'll be like, "See, Mom, I can still." But I think for him that was the thing. I mean, he definitely had some pain growing up with Mom saying, "Wow, that child is so much better." But the very thing that rebelled is what made him different individual, able to grow. And the child down the street who never rebelled about anything turned out we probably have a meaning for him today, like, a little bit developmentally challenged, because basically became sort of a perpetual child and can run the basics, but still needs the adult next door to remind him, hey, you gotta do this to make the farm work well. So,
Now, see, I understand that with the one girl child in this family, because she actually was born with developmental disabilities. She can cook and she can clean and stuff like that, but without guidance from her mom, she probably wouldn't. How do I say? Without guidance from her mom being there or whatever, she wouldn't probably survive on her own.
She wouldn't do the things that she does.
Well, no. She just plain can't think out of the box. Like if her mom were not there to manage the household bills and stuff, she would not be able to live on her own. But I think part of that was the way she was raised too.
Yeah.
Because I've met plenty of people with developmental disabilities, and we as humans learn our whole entire lives long, right up until we take that last breath, we learn something. And I hate seeing people put limits on people who already are challenged with something, because there are learning that they can do. They might learn a different way than you do, but they can learn, and they want to.
Yeah, but those parents didn't teach their kids.
They did not, and unfortunately, this is actually a relative of Rick's. This family, they're related, and when I first heard about this, I'm like, what? That's impossible. You guys are putting me on. No, they're really like that thing. Yes, I've met them, and they really are.
and this is an interesting question because, I knew a family once, and where it was, when I first became a minister, so this is whatever, 25 years ago or something like that, I knew a family, and she was the youngest in the family, but she was very old now, so imagine, like, debating nursing home kind of, so this is her family had 20 kids, her mom had 20 kids, and rumor in the town had that she kept the youngest to be the perpetual child. And so I always wondered, was it developmental, meaning by the time I knew her, she was completely dependent on her older sister. Matter of fact, when her older sister needed to go in a nursing home, it was a big deal, like the state finally came in and said, you cannot live alone, this is dangerous. That her younger sister had to the challenge was we had to find a nursing home facility with 2 wings. One for her sister that needed physical help, and one for her who could do everything physically in the world, but needed someone mentally to kind of, and we actually had to look all over the place to find, we actually found a facility literally on 2 sides of the street with the different types of care so that they could see each other every day. But the point is, I always wondered in my head, was she born that way, or did they just groom her that way? Because rumor around town has it that mom had 20 kids, all went out and did their own things, or ran the farm or whatever, and she kept the youngest one to be the perpetual child. And I'm wondering how much of that was direct influence. What are the odds that the youngest child who they wanted as the perpetual child just happened to be developmentally disabled? They always, long before we had terms like that.
People who want to branch out, it's hard to keep them stunted.
Okay. So,
But she would have had to been stunted way early.
Yeah, but even then, I think there would have been urges that would have come out in some way.
so you think without a physical component of that, this child would have just really rebelled?
Yeah.
Just really rebelled.
Yeah.
Just kind of,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
mom, I'm not gonna.
But then again, I mean, look at the Holocaust. These people walked in there knowing they were going to a gas chamber.
Yeah.
That felt like they had no choice. So if they, from the early on age, you were taught this is the authority, you cannot move, you cannot do anything if I tell you. Simon Says kind of thing.
What?
Simon Says breathe. Simon Says go to the bathroom.
What's that?
That's the same question though.
Yeah.
Tell me more, please.
Well, the same question is, she was told, no, you can't do anything else. And why didn't she rebel? It has to be development, obviously.
I think it's a normal part of development to rebel.
Yes, I know.
See, I think in my example, it was just that family situation. In other words, some luck. They wanted the youngest to kind of be the perpetual child, and it kind of worked that way.
I think that it worked that way a lot in big, old-fashioned families. And I don't know if it is a side effect of, change life babies or what, but yeah, it's...
No, I was always curious because she also, and again, I only knew her as a very old person, but kind of revered her parents, or mom especially, and that whole thing. And I was always wondering about that because other people you would think would have had kind of a rebellious phase where they find who they are.
Yeah, because I'm sorry for driving this person one to life.
Fair enough.
Well, they want to know, just like Greg said, who am I? What's my purpose here?
Yeah.
And
And if they don't, there's...
if they don't, there's a stunt, there's a stop, and I think about what you said, what would it have been like if they had never done that? What would we have been like? We would have been stunted, we would have been just stalled, going through life like this.
The world would not be
The
like it is
emotions
by
and stuff, because we have
any
good and
means.
bad emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, there's certainly, I'm a big fan of where you're going with this. I kind of like the fact that they ate from, I like the fact that we grow, that we learn, that we strive, even when it's painful. But in all fairness, from a long-term evolutionary point of view, human beings are dangerous on this planet. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, most changes in animals take over millions of years, and there was a wonderful analogy of one of the, I watch all these documentaries, and one was like, if the length of time that the Earth has existed with some form of life on it, microbial or otherwise, was 24 hours, how long have humans been active and doing things that are really noticed? And it would be like, I think it was like 2 minutes or something like that. Meaning, it's only in the last, looking at the lifetime of the planet Earth, we really, as human beings, just got here, and we've already made a mess of the place. I mean, so it's one of those, we do amazing things.
The most invasive species ever created.
Yes, in many ways. In many ways, there's a wonderful. I'm going to throw this line out to you. There's a wonderful line in the movie The Matrix. Who has seen the movie The Matrix?
I have.
Yeah, so I got 1, 2. Okay. There's a wonderful line in there. Such a long story short, there's a science fiction film about essentially a race of robots rises up, and they use humans for power and stuff. But everything we see and create is a computer program, essentially, and we're interacting with it. But one of the lines in there later was, our first programs we made was a perfect paradise, but the human beings would never believe it, that there's something in us that will not sit quietly and complacently in paradise. We always have to be striving for something. And they said the first, we lost entire crops of humans because you just couldn't sit there in the program and believe in perfect paradise. You have to strive for something. Is there something in us that always is not only striving, but conflicting with one another? Or can we ever just sit back and be happy?
Well, for a minute or two, yeah.
Oh yeah, a minute or two here and there. But I mean, long term, is the perfect Eden-like paradise even possible for us?
No.
Well, I think like with Adam and Eve there, let's say that they had different, let's say upbringing or whatever, and let's say that when God told them that it was evil to eat that fruit, they say, okay, I won't eat it. And everybody's created equal, just like when you're growing up, your parents, some people want their parents to they're gonna stay at home forever because they can't make decisions or anything on their own. And they want somebody that tells them what to do, and they're gonna do that. And then there's people like me, I couldn't wait to get away from my parents because I wanted to make my own decisions. I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was rebellious.
So if you were Adam, you would have grabbed that fruit right away.
I would have grabbed it right away. And there's some people if somebody upper authority tells them to do something, they're gonna do it. They're not gonna grab that fruit because they know what's gonna happen.
But certain people, sooner or later, they're gonna, in whatever form it takes in their life, they're gonna grab that proverbial forbidden fruit and run with it.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. I'm with you, Dave, on this one. My mother tried to be patient with me, but I had to try it. And, there's a little bit of that child in me. You can tell me it's going to burn me or hurt me, but I got to see for myself.
And you see some children, they live with their parents their whole life. They don't want to get out into the world and learn new things. They're just happy just with their parents, being with their parents and living their kind of life, whether it's, whether they learn anything from it or not.
And then you see how there's this, I think most stereotypes or some stereotypes are based in fact when you look at very rich kids who have everything given to them, never have to struggle or strive for anything, and how miserable they are.
Yeah, that is kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, to have everything and still be miserable.
I mean, I look at that Nondenominational tribe up there that's got the little six and whatever casino, right? And all of a sudden when this casino money's coming in, these kids are getting, I forget what it is, but it's something to the tune, I know it's over $100,000 a month. And I mean everybody from birth on up is getting this over $100,000 a month. What happened to those kids was they no longer had to fight for anything. They started, bought a new truck, don't like the color, I'll go get a different one. I'm bored, let's go out and drink and let's do some drugs and entertain ourselves. I mean, it's just when you're given everything and you don't have to work for it, I feel bad for you. I do. I mean.
And that is something you try to teach your children, that everything tastes better, feels better, works better when you earned it yourself.
Yep.
But it is fascinating that, because for most of us, you want to have a home and life, the things that we've had to go out and work for. And what's very interesting is the people who are exempt from that, particularly rich people, don't seem any happier from what you see, especially.
No. My aunt does millions of dollars, and she's one of the most miserable people I know. She is sad. She's lonely.
The money can't buy you love.
No.
Or a sense of purpose.
No.
I mean, she comes off with a real strong front. I love her to death. But she comes off with a real strong front. But when her and I sit and we actually talk, her loneliness is very visible. She feels separated. She feels apart. She feels alone. And she can buy anything she wants to. She's got the money. But that isn't going to buy her that connection she's craving.
I'm working with a guy who is, let's just say, not very tactful with corporate, but the idea is he wants to work until he drops dead. And he's sort of fighting to get the position that he wants. But I really think it's not about money for him. I think he's got plenty. I think he is deeply afraid that if he gets up in the morning and he doesn't have a job or something to go to, that he'll die. And I think it's very interesting.
There's people like that all the time.
Yeah.
Their job is their life. And without that job, they're not going to feel like they have a purpose.
And how many of them actually die after
Retirement,
retirement?
yeah.
Because there's nothing to do.
Well, and again, it goes back to the story, though. It's very, because essentially Adam and Eve are given the choice to sit around this garden all of their lives and not worry about anything, and they just don't. Even though their lives are harder afterwards, I think they almost strive for that. That they can't, they're unable to sit in a perfect blissful situation. And I'm wondering if we aren't all the same way. Like, that Like, you're right, some people like for retirement, hey, you don't have to do anything anymore. And for some, that's actually hell.
Yeah.
Now, I guess I relate to that story because I sympathize with him. I'm something.
You tell yourself you would love it, but if you didn't have your fishing, what would you do?
Or something to get up.
I don't have my fishing now.
Well,
Don't depress the poor guy, his engine died.
You're torturing me now. No, I feel like I always said, well, I told Janina, I said, well, I think I'm gonna go to the bank and borrow money. And then I thought about it, no, I don't wanna do that. I'm gonna save up for it, and it's gonna mean more that instead of making those payments, I save for it, and I'm gonna enjoy that movie that much more because I saved up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then I have to rely on making these payments all the time and being stressed out. This is why I'm not stressed out. Just keep putting money away until,
Until you have what you want.
yeah.
Well, see, I don't like that plan, because that plan means he's gotta save the money, we're not doing anything.
Oh, I see where that goes. Oh, no. Yeah, the household budget's gonna get real tight, and life's no fun.
I say we can't afford
My
that.
life is over until that thing is fixed.
Janina's going getting a side job.
Yeah.
We're gonna get that damn
I was
boat.
just gonna say, is there anything you can sell on the internet?
I already thought about that.
Oh my God.
That went through my mind. I don't have
I
anything.
found relatives who would pay for it for us, and David won't pay for it.
Dave's gonna be back at Menards looking for blinds.
I have to get my job back. Please let me sell blinds again.
Blinds. You can't complain to me now that we're out of blinds at Menards, though. It's not my problem anymore.
But there is lids now.
There are lids. Oh, great.
Okay,
Well, that's good.
okay, good.
Big
Yeah.
farmers got lids.
I spent a year getting yelled at by
I
Patty.
don't know
We didn't
about
have
my knowledge, I
candy.
haven't checked there, but they probably do now too.
Alright.
Don't
Lee
have,
Farm had a bunch.
pardon?
Lee Farm has a bunch.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, they're out now. They're everywhere.
So maybe a big part of the story is just helping us relate to the fact that we are always striving for something more. Sometimes that works out well, sometimes it's horrible. But we seem to be creatures that cannot just sit back and enjoy it long term.
Or leave well enough alone.
But no, we really cannot leave well enough alone as a creature. And I think this story goes to it. I mean, there seems, even at the beginning, before they even know about good and evil, and we have a certain what do you call it? They are not contented sitting in the garden enjoying a blissful, peaceful existence. It's almost like they need some striving, they need some fighting, they need something to reach out for.
And that's the start of the story.
And and it only goes downhill from there, Janina reminds us.
Up and down.
They wanted some drama, they got it with their kids.
Well, that with the kids, and that with, and that whole
Oh
bit.
my God, yeah. It does go down.
And maybe that's the perfect way to begin it, because the Bible is a giant story of people forming a relationship with God, and it is very parental. Some days it's, oh God, lead us, help us, we're in a bad way. Other days it's, God, you give us bad advice, I don't like what you're saying, we'll do our own thing. And there's a lot of that back and forth. The whole Bible is about a constant back and forth with God's wishes sometimes being fulfilled and sometimes, and more often than not. And maybe this is the perfect beginning stage, that from the beginning, people have their own minds and cannot just sit back and follow along. For better or for worse. All right, last thoughts on Adam and Eve. Are we going to blame them, or are we just going to accept the fact that we're part of this? And last thoughts on this. I rather enjoyed this. Awesome. All right.
And that was the only picture of prehistoric fruit I could find.
Well, no. By the way, trivia. We always say the apple. The apple. I don't know where we. The idea is one commentator said it was more like the pomegranate. Not that it matters, but Or you can think of it as an
It
apple.
could be
Yeah.
anything.
It can be, and it's yeah. But I thought I'd throw that out there. So, what is that on the screen there?
That's a prehistoric fruit. I could not pronounce the name if I tried.
Okay, so old fruit. There we
So it's
go.
edible.
Yeah, it's edible. But yeah.
Well, it wasn't poisonous to you. You wouldn't be
Look
there.
edible to me.
Look at if you need to bump into that in the woods, she'd be
What if they
questioned.
didn't like apples?
What's that?
If they didn't like apples?
Well, it was that one fruit, so it's like they wouldn't know that.
I don't know, I think the apple just came.
That was just
Yeah.
I think the apple just
Could've
came
been
because it
anything.
was the most popular fruit at
Yeah.
the time, and so we said the apple.
Yeah, no, fair enough. It makes sense.
I would have gone with fig or, you know.
Yeah,
Pomegranate.
what in translation? Is that apples a translation?
No, fruit.
It just says fruit.
It just says fruit.
Yeah.
Because apple trees really gotta be in cold climates. They've gotta have winter.
Oh, they started out in Asia. I'll have to do more research into what is the ideal climate for an apple tree. Janina, you stump me again. Why do you stump me week after week, Rania?
Johnny Appleseed.
Well, yeah, that was mostly, yeah.
That was later on.
No, later on, but it's also more northern climates. You're talking about across upper area of North America, I think. You know, or what is now the United States. You stumped me on that one. Sorry. All right. Thanks a lot, gang. And again, my thoughts around this have always been that we shouldn't blame Adam and Eve too much. They really are just like us, and there's something in us that we are rebellious. We try our own, and sometimes good things comes out, sometimes bad things. But I think it's just part of who we are, and we have to live with it. And I don't know if I always mind. And between you and me, and it might be heretical, but I'm not upset that they ate of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. There's something about the human striving for something better that I actually admire, and kind of wouldn't have wanted to go without it. But that's just me. All right, thanks, gang. As we go, and again, always looking for topics for discussion. Ironically, do thank Richard for me for the topic, even though he was not able to join us today. I thought that was really good of him. And again, have him when he's feeling better, throwing his 2 cents on the whole thing.
And I think we were all in unison about it. And I think this time we were all in unison.
I've never, yes, I gotta find it. We usually have a little more of a debate, but that's good. Every once in a while we'll actually agree. I like that. As we go, may your spirit go before us. As we go, may we follow where you lead. May we live what we have learned, share the message we have heard, and be a light unto the world as we go. As we go, may your spirit go before us. As we go, may we follow where you lead. May we live what we have learned, share the message we have heard, and be a light unto the world as we go. One more time, here we go. As we go, may your spirit go before us. As we go, may we follow where you lead. May we live what we have learned, share the message we have heard, and be a light unto the world. Be a light unto the world as we go. Thanks, gang. Remember, we have great brownies here, though many of you have had them already. And, wish me luck this week. I have orientation for graduate school Thursday. What's up?
Plug